As if the heat wave wasn't enough, now Europeans have to deal with this? If you were to tell me that the team that opened their World Cup campaign with a 7-1 win was going to get knocked out by a team that opened theirs with a 4-1 loss, and also that the team that lost was Germany, I might actually have believed you. I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah, so I guess that this video and this title was a lie, as all the Germans were celebrating making it into their first knockout stage of a World Cup since winning it in 2014. All was well in the world, only for them to fall out against Paraguay in the round of 32. And in a way, this is the exact same round that they've fallen out in every tournament since 2014, so I'm not sure how much of a lifting of the curse has been done. Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome back. I'm Tinashe. So, there is a lot to talk about in this past day of World Cup football. What am I saying? We've got Brazil, Japan, Netherlands, Morocco, Germany, Paraguay, and usually for these videos they're a tiny bit scripted, and I've kind of written everything down. But because these games are coming so thick and fast, and these upsets are happening so crazily, this is raw. You're getting welcome to Raw Football Iconic. Oh my god, that was horrible. I'm keeping it in. I'm keeping it in. Subscribe if you haven't. We're really close to hitting 400k, and that'll be insane if we can do that during the World Cup, or even after it. I don't care. I'm just happy you're here. Let's start with Germany and Paraguay. I don't think Germany could have picked a less dramatic way to fall out in this cycle right now, dominating the game for really large portions for pretty much the majority of the game, only for Paraguay to score first, and then Germany to climb their way back as they did against the Ivory Coast, except in this time around there was no happy ending, even though it looked like they might have been. We'll talk about all those things, the disallowed goal by Jonathan Tah, the fouls that probably should have been given against Paraguay by this referee, but he decided to let the game flow on. Some people have their opinions about the leniency of the World Cup officiating. I think for the most part that I'm quite happy with it, but there are things that are going to get missed, and a lot of calls that aren't going to happen. We have to kind of deal with it. And then we make it to penalties, where I just don't get it. I don't understand. So as you guys know, I am in Austria right now. I'm getting a lot of the German media cycle and seeing what people are saying and kind of what the opinions are, and my German is not perfect, but I can hear a decent amount, and I can watch the news and pick things up and, not completely understand, but we're getting there. All of that is to say that I've caught a lot of the German news, especially coming up into this tournament. And a lot of these journalists and reporters weren't even thinking about Paraguay. They were thinking about France or Sweden in the next round. They didn't even give this game much thought. It's quite astonishing. And then, I'm watching the game, and I barely watch with commentary, and I was doing it this time, and again, picking up bits and pieces. There was so much being made about how Germany had never lost in a penalty shootout in World Cup history. They have now. They have now, and the script writers are going a little bit overboard. But let's rewind a tiny bit and go back to Paraguay before we get into that moment and the really hilarious penalty shootout. A lot of people were very much writing Paraguay off as soon as they came out of their first game against the US. 4-1 loss. It was horrible. But a lot of people were also a little bit confused, myself included. I woke up to watch that game. I wanted to see the US's first game, and I wanted to see how Paraguay's defense would hold up. I hear all these things about how in the qualification stage, Paraguay was a really, really stubborn team who got the better of teams like Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay by being compact, being niggling in the way that, a lot of South American teams are, where they're just antagonizing, they're rough, they're getting in your face, they're pushing the boundaries. I just did not see that against the US, and I was confused, and I, like a lot of people, thought that Paraguay, they did themselves a little bit of a disservice, whether it was because they went down early against the US and were forced to be a little bit more expansive, or whether it was because they underestimated the US. We'll never know. What the result was a horrible loss. Afterwards, what a comeback. Insane come up. And they're now in the round of 16. The games they've played since then, Australia, Germany, and Turkey, have all been in their classic style. The worst of those results has been against Australia, which was a 0-0 draw. True to brand, they play their game, they take their chance, and they're 1-0 up against Germany in a knockout round within 41 minutes. Now, I will say just a bit of a note about the referees, because they have played a starring role. A lot of people have noticed that the calls have been more lenient in this World Cup. There's definitely been a mandate, very clearly been a mandate by FIFA from the top down to let the game flow a little bit more, let the challenges be a tiny bit more, have more punch in them, and don't stop starts, all that bad stuff. And for me, I think that's a great thing. I hope that they continue this in all the domestic leagues moving forward. But what happens is that you do get a lot of calls that aren't actually made in favor of this leniency. Calls that I think are quite obvious. We saw this in every game. I will talk about the Netherlands game, the Netherlands-Morocco game after this, but we saw that in that one. But in this one in particular, it's those sorts of calls that Paraguay were getting away with quite a lot. Don't get me wrong, Germany were doing the same, as was everyone, but Paraguay were, as they do, they push the boundaries. The thing about that, though, is that we're seeing the opposite happen as well. We're seeing a lot of challenges that are typically called now not being called. We're also seeing a lot of challenges that aren't typically called now being called. Germany dominate most of the match. They eventually equalized through Kai Havertz. It was a good goal, well worked, but are just not, they're lacking the bite to be able to take it a tiny bit further. But then they do in extra time. Tinashe, who by the way was really good in this game, I think right before this goal, he did this really cool move where he did like a bit of a Johan Cruyff turn on the edge of the box and then crossed it in with his left foot. Nothing came of it, but you know, it looked like something was happening. He towers over the Paraguay defense, headers it over, and it's 2-1, seemingly, to Germany, and they're going through. This goal is scored in extra time. Except, if you look back at the replay, the Paraguay goalkeeper seems to be obstructed by Waldemar Anton, Germany's number 3, and the goal is disallowed. Now, I mean, I've already seen all the discourse about this, and I knew immediately as I saw this happen, I knew this was going to be quite a point of contention. And listen, I think that most of us have been desensitized to what a foul actually is. If you look at this sequence over here, you can clearly see Anton move into Paraguay's goalkeeper, not even attempting to go for the ball. Now, is the contact soft? Yes. The contact is very soft. Like I'm looking at that, I'm seeing the goalkeeper has gone down very easily. But the question for me, like this is my opinion about football and about fouls and all these things, is it's intention. It's about intention. I don't care about fouls and hugging in the box, and people are going to bring up Arsenal all the time, and of course they will, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to open up this whole can of worms. Actually, we will. I don't really mind, you know, hugging and all of that in the box, as long as you're going for the ball. As long as you're there and the ball is to be won. If your back is to the ball and you're not even trying to get onto the ball and you're just trying to get in the way of your man or the goalkeeper, then this is ridiculous. What are we doing? We're not playing American football. Like, get physical with your player, get physical and all that, but try and win the ball. And that's not what this German player is doing over here. And he leaves himself open to a foul, which I think it is. I think it's a foul, and I'm sure I'm going to get people disagreeing with me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. We'll get into that. Obviously, it's not just an Arsenal thing. It probably is a Premier League thing. I think fans of other leagues will look at this and be like, that is definitely a foul. You Premier League fans are a little bit crazy. And yeah, they're not that wrong, because it's clearly a Premier League thing. May I present you with Exhibit A? And by the way, this picture does not involve Arsenal. This is Manchester United versus Everton. It was disgusting. So let's talk about this penalty shootout. This was one of the funniest, but also one of the strangest penalty shootouts I think I have ever seen. We have Paraguay speed to a 2-goal lead immediately after Kai Havertz misses the opening pen for Germany, only for Paraguay to let Germany right back into the game, albeit with some great saves by Manuel Neuer. And I will say as well, the Paraguay penalties that actually did hit were brilliant. Insanely cool, great goals. But then after that, it just all turns to shit. And you really think that Germany are going to flip the script and make their way back, but they just don't. Tinashe with, might I say, a stellar addition to his resume in his application for the German space program, just absolutely skies that. Also, by the way, Tinashe has never taken a penalty in his entire career before this match. So I make jokes, but let's all be real here. He's the only one that's seemingly stepped up, and he deserves praise for it. Julian Nagelsmann's time has to be up at this point. He wasn't extremely popular going into this World Cup. I mean, a lot of people were questioning his decision, his picks, starting Leroy Sané all the time, not starting Dennis Undav, not bringing a lot of other players in, you know, like Jan Bisek or Eli Mala or all those players. And then eventually coming to this game and losing the way that they did, it only makes sense for him to leave. And what a shame, because I remember how excited Germans were to appoint him at the time. And the name on a lot of people's mouths right now is Jurgen Klopp. Fair enough. He is the only other elite German that hasn't actually managed the national team, only other elite German manager, rather, that hasn't managed the national team that's out there right now. But is he even going to want to leave his cushy Red Bull job? He seems to be having a great time. Trivago ads are on point. Will his tactics actually translate well to a national team or not? You never know. And then we get to the Brazil versus Japan match. Now, I actually did stream this one. I was live for this one, and I was very prepared for the Germany versus Paraguay game to go the exact same route as this one did, where the less favorable team scores first, the more favorable one equalizes, that eventually goes on to win it and claim their prize and move on to the next round. Brazil, they at least delivered, giving us a cracking game in the process against Japan. Germany, not so much. But Japan, now, they were great. They were great. My heart really does go out to Japan because they were fantastic in the first half. They were combative. They were making sure that Brazil were frustrated and weren't able to play their actual game. And, they are, in a lot of ways, the pride of Asia. They're only one of two teams that made it out of the group stages from the Asian Confederation, them and Australia. And Australia, not really Asian. What? Cancel me. Well, what did I do? What did I say? Did I say something wrong? I mean, geographically, they're just not. So technically, Japan were the only Asian team left, and they fought well. They fought very well. Now, even though Japan sets out to really prevent Brazil from playing their game, I wouldn't say that they did it in the stereotypical, haram ball fashion that a lot of people talk about. Yes, they were frustrating. Yes, they shared the same goal as a Paraguay, for example, but they weren't as, for lack of a better word, ugly. But I don't want to use the word ugly because it has connotations. I'll say they weren't as abrasive. They were still extremely frustrating, very solid defensively, great mid-block. Brazil in that first half just could not find any way through. They try to go through the middle, doesn't work. They try to go through the wings, did not work. Every cross that they put in only hit the first man and nothing else. And interesting comment about this is that you see this comment made about Asian teams quite often, and you've heard it before. It's that they have trouble with height. They have trouble with aerial balls. They're not so strong in that department, which is a very lazy take, maybe outdated, maybe was never true, whatever you want to call it. Because think back to the very first game that Japan played in this World Cup against the Netherlands, right? It's 2-2. Lo and behold, everyone was talking about how the game was going to be decided by height. Yes. The first goal was scored by Van Dijk. It was a header. It was a great header. He was kind of uncontested and all of that. But the game goes on a tiny bit more. It gets to 2-1. And Japan equalize. How do they equalize? With a goal where Van Dijk is out-jumped to win the initial header, and then Kamada finishes it off. So they're very clearly a good side aerially, and they showed it against Brazil in the first half and most of the second half, where aerial threats just were not actually aerial threats. They were kind of only undone because they came up against one of the best far post threats on the planet, in Casemiro. Anyone that watches Manchester United knows how good Casemiro is in the air and knows that you can't leave him unmarked in that position because he will score. And then he will do his celebration because he smells it. Then he'll do the 6-7 for his son. This is where I have to kind of switch it a little bit from really praising Japan and go on to how well Brazil came out in the second half. Whatever was said, whoever took that halftime team talk, whether it was Carlo Ancelotti, whether it was Neymar, everyone's calling him a mascot, so maybe it was him. Maybe he's there just to hype the team up. You never know. Whatever happened, it worked. Brazil were just constantly applying pressure. You could see that the Japanese legs were waning as the time went on and as the clock ticked on, and the concentration levels were really poor. Although that excuse about being tired and, losing concentration and having to defend for so long doesn't really apply to Tanaka, who was only on the pitch for about 13 minutes at that point and gave the ball away on the edge of the box for Japan and allowed for Brazil to get in, Bruno Guimaraes to pass it to Martinelli, and for Martinelli to score the winner. It's unfortunate. It really is sad. But Japan, they need to hold their heads high because this was a great performance, particularly from Suzuki, the goalkeeper, from Sano, the midfielder by Maeda. I thought he was really good. Kamada, of course, as well, was great. It was a good performance. And I think that a lot of these players, I'm not sure what their club situations are like, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple movements happening from them after this World Cup. Brazil are through. At the end of the day, the better team, the stronger team won, which is the exact same thing that happened in the Netherlands versus Morocco game. Like I said, I woke up about halfway through, well, around the 60th minute or so to watch it because, listen, it was 3 a.m. game, and it's a tough ask across the world. But I'm glad that I did, because what I witnessed was, I think, a lot of people realizing that this Morocco team is not a one-off. And I know what you're thinking. I know what you might be thinking watching this. How can you say that Morocco, how could you even insinuate that Morocco were a one-off? Have you not seen that they made it to the semifinals the last World Cup cycle, that they are AFCON champions, however contentious you may think that that is? They are an immaculate football side with immaculate players. And people are still underestimating them. People might still think that this is like a Cinderella story kind of thing, but it's just not. They are good. And they played total football, Cruyffian football, against the Dutch. It forced them to sit really deep, 5 at the back, and really just absorb a ton of pressure. It was ugly. Now, the Dutch scored first. Cody Gakpo scored, and, my heart goes out to Cody Gakpo, who, if you don't know, he lost a child during a pregnancy with his partner very recently, and he chose to play this game and stay with the Netherlands camp instead of, taking some time out. And, understandable. Work can be a good distraction for you in these sorts of situations, and, wishing nothing but the best for him and his family. The Netherlands almost came away with what would have been a remarkable result for all those that watched it, but for all those that didn't, probably would have just looked routine. But at the end of the day, Morocco were too strong. They were chasing a goal at the end of the game, and I remember thinking to myself that there are fewer teams that you would want to be in this position in against less than the Netherlands, because Morocco was spamming balls into the box, hoping for the best. And of course, we've already spoken about the aerial presence of the Dutch when we're speaking about Japan. It's not exactly a team that's easy to outdo in the air, even though, like I said about the Japan game, it has been done before. And it was done again in this game, this time by Issa Diop, probably the tallest player in the Moroccan side. I don't even have to look that up, but I'll put it on screen right now. And then for the second time in a row, a round of 32 match goes to penalties. And make no mistake, I know that I keep referencing how much the difference in quality, watching the game was. Really, this was a win for the Netherlands. They couldn't have looked for a better result, I think, than going to penalties, because in extra time, they had 17% of the ball. 82% of control was Morocco. Without Verbruggen, who knows how this game could have ended for the Netherlands. Only because Morocco were just biding their time, really keeping the ball really well, trying to look for an opening. The Netherlands had conceded to just sticking into their shape and not letting anything through, not creating anything in the process. And a lot of people will say that they got what they deserved by the time that the game was over. I'm not the sort of person that thinks that way, but they gambled and they lost. Now, another penalty shootout that was just extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. So many missed goals, so many strange shots, so many strange saves, or lack thereof. We have Verbruggen, who was incredible against Morocco, who did this weird blunder where he actually saved a shot in the penalty shootout only to knock the ball back into his own goal. I've never seen an own goal in penalties before, but I guess I have now. We have Bono, who for a Crescencio Somerville shot just does this weird thing where he shifts to the side and then just palms it out. Very odd. We have everyone hitting the post. Hakimi, of all people, hits the post, and eventually Saibari steps up and wins the game. What a sequence of football. I mean, listen, we have just started the round of 32, and if the rest of the World Cup is going to be like this and give us these sorts of moments, I'm here for it. Ronald Koeman has been so poor for the Dutch. I saw his post-match interview. He was giving a lot of excuses, talking about how the Netherlands were playing in a 5-at-the-back formation and how he had some people pressuring him to play in that formation, and how people shouldn't be upset at him for just following what people wanted and, trying to just shift the blame all of here and here and there. And it's not working out. It's not working out. There is a problem with the Netherlands coaching situation. I do wonder who's going to go in next. I would imagine that Koeman is gone, but let's see. Let's see what happens. Paraguay, on the flip side of things, after the Germany match, I just seen that it's been announced that there's going to be a national holiday in Paraguay because of their performance in the World Cup. It's absolutely crazy. And then on the flip side of all of that, the Korean national team coach not only stepped down, but also as soon as he landed in South Korea, was met with fans at like 3 a.m. shouting insults at him, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Like, guys, the World Cup, it makes crazy things happen. It makes a lot of crazy things happen. And like I said, we are nowhere near done. What a time to be alive, right? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, it's not really the sort of video we usually make. Not as scripted, not as polished, but I really enjoyed making it, and I really enjoyed these games. Hope you did too. All the best. Subscribe if you haven't. I will catch you later on for France versus Sweden and for Ivory Coast versus, who are they playing? Norway. That's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.